Hello and welcome to a kind of a little bit of a how-to video on the early Bronco. In my last one, I did talk about the kind of the sourcing of where I got some of the components at, and I said the follow-up video was going to be one where I talked about how to lower the ride height a little bit. So there's a couple ways to do that. The preferred method of doing that would actually be to buy lower height shocks. So it comes with 100 millimeter shocks from the factory. You could go a 90 millimeter shock or an 80 millimeter shock, and that would lower the ride height down as well. And they're properly designed to work within that range, right? So they're designed to compress and extend based on a 90 millimeter height, and not the 100 millimeter that I have on here. So the cheap way of doing it, and I would say it's a great way to at least test it out and maybe find out if you want to change shocks, would be to do what I did here, which is to lower the shock mounting position. The shocks have their own mounting flange on the axle, and I'm going to take that off and I'm going to move it to where the trailing link actually hooks to, and I'm going to go through and show you guys how to do that in this video, so you could try it out as well. But just be known that by doing so, you're going to have some impact points in the suspension that don't exist if you keep everything in the proper heights and use the proper pickup points. The front will impact the panhard rod, and the rear will actually impact the rear battery tray here. So just to let you guys know, that will happen. So if you're gonna, say if you jumped it or you came off an obstacle in which the suspension was going to become fully compressed, the suspension is going to impact the chassis rather than the shock absorber coming to its bump stops. So there may be some ways that I've kind of thought about a way to add some bump stops to the shocks to kind of make it so that I have some sort of a cushioning effect for that very last little bit of suspension travel, or add some bump stops to the chassis so that the axles hit there first rather than other things that are on the chassis. So just as a caveat, if you do it, you're going to have some impact in areas that are really not designed to have impact. So that's my word of caution. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me grab some tools, get the body off, flip it upside down, and I'll be back in a second. All right, everyone, so I have the body off and I have the vehicle upside down here. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to hopefully try to not get my hands in the way here, because that's a pretty common thing to have happen when you do these kind of videos. So the very first step is you want to remove this pretend knockoff here. And this just hand tightens on here. So you just take your finger, turn it off. There we go. And that exposes the nut that actually holds the wheel on. So I'm going to grab the 4-way here, turn it in there, grab a screwdriver, and I'm just going to put that in here. And this gives me a little bit extra leverage. So I'm just going to go ahead and break it loose. Here we go. Okay, do that. And I'll just go set that off to the side and go ahead and take off the wheel. Okay. And this will expose the suspension links that are going to needed to get in there and change the shock height to a different mounting position. All right, so put all my tools over here on the side. Okay, go ahead and take the wheel off, set that over to the side. And now you can see, so right here is where the, I'll use this as a pointer. This is where the shock pickup point is from the factory. It's right behind the hub here. Let me try to move that just a little bit more. There, you can see it right here. This is the lower pickup point. This is the link to the trailing link, and we're going to take the shock and I'm going to move it from here up to here. All right, and what that's going to do is it's going to lower the ride height down, which will lower the center of gravity as well. So we go ahead and just undo this screw here. Now, we will not be reusing these screws when we put it back together. These screws are going to be too short, so we're going to need an M3 by 25 millimeter screw to put this back together. So let's go ahead and take this link off. Okay, and we can leave the ball joint in the link. We're just going to take off the fastener, okay? Okay, so let's see. Take that off. Put this over to the side, and now we're going to take the shock absorber and we're going to move it to this position here. So you can see we're going to move it from this point to this point, which is the amount we are going to lower the ride height. So from here, you're going to need a M3 by 25 millimeter socket head cap screw. These are available all over the place, hardware stores, McMaster Car, Amazon. And we're gonna go ahead and, this one actually takes a little bit larger tool. So we use a 2mm hex to remove it, and I need a 2.5 to put it back together. This is just because I used a different size cap screw. It requires a different size or a different type of head, for instance. It's not a button head, it's a socket head cap screw. So let's go ahead and put this in. Okay, make sure it is nice and tight. There we go. Tight but doesn't bind. Okay, everything seems to work. Let's go ahead and articulate the suspension here. And as you can see, everything works good until it gets right down to the very end here, and this is where the panhead rod will make an impact here. So just be advised that by doing this, the impact point is going to be changing on the suspension. You'll be hitting the impact. The panhead rod will come into contact with the oil pan and the chassis. So just be advised of that. And if you want, there's better ways of doing this, which is by a proper length shock. But this will get you started, and this is a very low cost solution. This only cost me just about 25 cents worth of fasteners. So let's go ahead and put back on the wheel. And just tighten this back up. And then once I get it snug, I'll use the screwdriver again inside the four-way here to go one last snug on here. And keep going. And then we'll put the knockoff back on, and then the ride height will be indeed set. So let's just hold that there. Let me grab my screwdriver. Just put it through the side here. Hold it tight. And there we go. Don't want to over tighten it. You don't want to strip it out. You just want it snug and secure. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and we will put the fake knockoff back on. I don't know, I think these knockoffs are kind of cool. Some people think they're kind of silly and gimmicky, but a friend of ours growing up, he had an AC Cobra with real knockoffs on it, and I always thought that was the coolest thing. Growing up, that his car was getting rebuilt, so I was over there visiting, and seeing real knockoffs is kind of a cool thing. So there you go. So that is how you lower the ride height on the Bronco. You can do that at all 4 locations so that it will sit level. What this will also do is it will reduce the telescoping effect of the front drive shaft as well. So with it sitting a little bit higher, the drive shaft is pretty pulled out. So if it goes into full extension mode or full droop mode, which it would be when the vehicle is in its proper orientation, when it's in full droop, it really pulls that drive shaft out pretty far. By lowering the ride height down just a little bit, it actually shortens this distance here, so it doesn't have so far to travel when it goes into droop, meaning there's less chance of that coming out. Now it's in full bump. You can see the drive shaft is fully compressed, and the suspension is kind of bottoming out here. You can see it doesn't bottom out equally. It bottoms out on this side first, and then it comes over to here. So just keep that in mind. There are some kind of limitations when you do this modification. That there are, like I said, there are better ways of doing it. But if you want to try it out and you want to do it for a low price, you go ahead and move the shocks to these locations. But just be advised that those locations are going to be impacted down here, and then the same on the back here. The pumpkin here will hit the back battery tray. So just keep that in mind. What this could be good for is, let's say you're out in the field, keep an extra set of all your fasteners with you. So if you get to a point in which you need more ground clearance, you could take the wheels off and change the shock mounting locations for more ride height. Or if you need a lower center of gravity, you could go ahead and move down to these positions here. Since I do mostly trail riding, I'm going to be okay with a lower ride height. I don't anticipate needing any more additional travel. I will probably look at 90mm shocks rather than the factory 100s and put them in their proper locations. But there you go. If you guys got any questions at all, just let me know. But yeah, I have to say though, the watching the suspension articulate is awesome. Axial did such a really cool job. And if you guys need to adjust any of these trailing links, that's what this hole is here. You can put a screwdriver in that and actually turn these turnbuckles and actually make your adjustments. So there's a lot of adjustability built into it. Mine's actually pretty well set from the factory. So, all right, there we go. That wraps up on how to lower the ride height using a secondary shock location. I have to thank Pilot Ryan for giving me the clue on how to do that. He's also the the one who got me interested in crawling at RC Fest last year. So thank you, Pilot Ryan, for getting me into this hobby and for the tip on the suspension.